All right, kind of a cool question I asked here on Twitter. We got a lot of, we sparked quite a few replies and then some other tweets, and we're gonna go through it. Is knowledge gap skill gap? Now, this is something I've kind of struggled with in Madden. The reason I asked it leads to a big question I have in Madden that, or not really a question, but just something that kind of bugs me. It's like this in a lot of esports, and we'll talk about that a little bit later in this video. But first, I want to go through these answers, these replies. Is knowledge gap skill gap? Okay, and again, I'll go through some of my thoughts a little bit later. We have people just saying, I'd say in terms of Madden, there's a skill gap in terms of being able to find new good stuff, and then there's a mechanical skill gap for stick work, usering. I would agree with that to some extent. First couple of months, there knowledge gap and skill gap. Let's see here. Knowledge gap and skill gap are separate. You can know how to make good reads and have a good user, but if you're sitting in coach suggestions or stock cover 3, it won't matter. You can know great route combos, but if your reads and user skills ass, your ass. Knowledge gap is, in my opinion, the most important skill gap. It comes from our friend Joe Bruin. Knowledge gap is barrier to entry. Skill gap is pocket, gap shoots, quick reads, run stick. Okay. Depending on time of the year. There's a lot of replies to this. And basically, so I elaborate on my question a little bit here in a second, where I said the reason I asked is knowledge gap skill gap is because, let's give you the scenario, okay? Let's say player A and player B are playing. Player B has a blitz that player A cannot block, okay? Player A then loses the game in a close game. The next game, somebody DMs player A how to block that blitz. Player A now wins. Is that skill gap? Is that knowledge gap? Or are those the same thing? Did a DM to player A make him a more skillful player just like that? Like, did he increase his skill level just from a DM? Did he increase his knowledge level? Do those things combine? I don't know. Right, that's where it becomes kind of interesting. And in reality, those two things, in my opinion, kind of play a big factor into each other. Let's go full screen and talk about this. I see a lot in Madden, a lot of different situations where somebody will win or lose a game, and a lot of times they're at a huge knowledge advantage. A really good example would be, a really great example would be somebody who runs the same run every single play, right? And the defense doesn't know how to shoot the gap. If they had just known a very simple gap shoot, that run's done, right? That's simple. That's how you stop runs for the most part. If you can just shoot the gap, the run's dead. But because they aren't aware of it, and it could just be the simplest thing in the world, and they're just one slight DM away from it. They might just need to crash their line down. It could be something as simple as that. That could be the difference between the player running the ball, scoring 21 points, just spamming this run or a couple of runs, right? We've seen that many times in Madden, and in competitive Madden or Weekend League. And that player scoring nothing because the run's getting shot in the backfield. Is the player running the ball, is he now more skillful than the player on defense? Until that player on defense has the gap shoot? I don't know. Does that make him more skillful? Another really good example is in the years past, there's been something called streak specialist, where if you rack caught a streak route in the middle of the field and you got hit, he would hold on to the ball every single time. If you ag caught it in the middle of the field, he would drop it. That was not how you wanted to catch it. But when people found out that streak specialist was overpowered in the middle of the field and you'd hold on to the ball, a lot of people assumed that you would ag catch the streak. It just makes sense. And even if you don't think it makes sense, it's fair. But that's wrong. You would drop it. You'd have to rat catch it. That would be the difference between fourth down conversions, between touchdowns, between a lot of things. Does somebody knowing that make them a more skilled player at Madden, or are they a more knowledgeable player at Madden, or are those things the same? I think one of my biggest gripes with competitive Madden, and again, this goes for every esport, and it's July 30th, guys. So we're just talking. It really doesn't matter that. So don't take it super deeply. But my opinion is that if you wanted to create, when talking about creating the most competitive possible game, the most competitive video game, that's the cool thing about esports, is that it's a lot more controlled than IRL, right? In real life, you can be a better football team than another team, but if your running back has a bad day or is sick or is whatever, and he fumbles the ball twice, let's say he has 2 fumbles on the day, super uncharacteristic, but happens. You are now in a hell game with a team that you are much worse or that you are much better than, right? That score right there is not indicative of skill level right there. Your running back just happened to fumble twice. You see that in Madden a lot with different like fluke opportunities, right? But getting back to what I was saying is essentially in Madden, you see a lot of people performing at a high level due to a vast amount of knowledge. It's one of the reasons why I will always be, if I play Madden for 10 years, I will always be a top at least 150 player in the world just because of my knowledge and my access to that knowledge, right? And I will, regardless of how poorly I get at stick work, as long as I can make halfway decent reads. You don't need to make super high level reads to be a top 150 Madden player in the world. You don't. I have the knowledge available to me to always be a really good Madden player. Should that be the case? Should it be a knowledge-based thing, or should there be more of a, should rely more on actual stick skill? Should a really good example of this would be something like, I would assume, I can't really speak on it a ton, but I would assume something like Fortnite, which relies a lot better on, on stick skill and on reflexes, and on quick decision making. Madden does rely on some of those things, but Madden relies a ton on, if you have a blitz that somebody else just doesn't know how to pick up, you are probably going to beat them. When in reality, you might not be more skilled than them at the game, but you have a knowledge base that they don't have. And again, this applies to a lot of things in life. This applies to so many. It really isn't that big of a deal either. Just something I thought it was funny to tweet out, and I got a lot of different responses. We're actually going to check out this response from Problem Right. Let's see. Problem. He ends up tweeting something over here. Let's see. What he end up saying? Let's see. Knowledge gap and skill gap are completely different. Fortnite is 80% skill gap, building, editing, box fights, 20% knowledge, rotating, knowing when to disengage, act. Madden is 80% knowledge, blitz setups, cover 2 beaters, what routes beat zone, etc. 20% skill, run stick, user. I wouldn't say it's drastically this different. I don't think it's that different. I see a lot of Madden players who are good at the game from their ability to just have a really good user. If you can just master having a great user, you can sit in a cover 3 shell, honestly, and play pretty good defense. You really can. People don't want to believe that. I've been a top 150 Madden player for the last 2 years, or for the past few years. But the past 2 years, I have sat predominantly in a cover 3 shell, making extremely minor adjustments around it, relying on my user to be able to recognize what route stem, what route combination the offense is running, and being able to take advantage of that and being able to user it and take that route combination away, right? That's something that I've been able to do. And that is more, I guess there is knowledge gap there for me recognizing the route stem, but it's also, I would say, stick skill for me being able to, I mean, that's even an argument in itself, I guess. Is that even stick skill at that point? Me recognizing a crosser and taking it away? Or is that a knowledge gap of me recognizing the crosser, seeing the crosser break out so I know it's becoming a crosser, and I know what route combos come from a certain formation, and taking that away? I don't know. It's just an interesting thing. Let me know what you think in the comments below, if you think knowledge gap or skill gap are the same, if they're different. They honestly both go into you winning Madden games in the end. They both play a huge factor in you actually winning games of John Madden football. So I don't know. It's just a cool thing, guys. Yeah. See you guys later.